Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our next installment of Accounting 3010. This one is about Module 4. We're going to talk about performance planning, essentially budgets and the expectations organizations have about what they're going to be doing in the future to try and coordinate their activities. As you can tell, my good friend and colleague Eric Valentine is not here today. He has the day off. So anyway, we'll try to press on without him for now and see where we go from there. So first thing I want to do is take a tour of where we are. You just finished an exam and we're trying to make sure that we follow along our learning objectives. So you remember that we started with these learning objectives from the very start of the semester. We've gotten started on this piece. That's the self-awareness part. You did the VIA, you did several other kinds of insight-driven assessments. Then we covered this part, cost classification, to kind of set the foundation. And you estimated costs with high-low and the scatter graph. And then we spent time on cost, volume, profit, where you built some tools and really emphasize that cost equation and how you can use that to coordinate your future decision making and bring people together in the context of that variable costing income statement. Well, one of the things that will be later in the semester is going to be the cost flow and job costing. It's on this foundational level because it is one of those fundamental pieces that you get in this course. But it kind of sits out here alone in a sense, and that'll be later in the semester as we talk about that. But today, one of the things we're after is we're going to start exploring this brick, okay? We're going to start looking at performance planning. How do organizations think about looking forward? And planning for the future. You can just imagine in this time of uncertainty that performance planning is very, very difficult to do and because there's just too many shocks to the system. So we'll give you a sense of it, but we'll also try to point out the challenges with it and where the uncertainties are. And whenever there's uncertainty, write this down. Wherever there is uncertainty, you'll see us talk about risk. And risk is kind of one of the key things we took out of Module 3. It's going to follow us into this next part when we talk about the risk associated with planning. So be on your toes, watch for risk factors as we go along. And so for this specific module, we've got a few things to set up for you. And the first thing is you've got to recognize whenever somebody does budget work, they create a tension. And it's a natural tension between what do I communicate, what do I tell you that my plan is, and then how do you assess my performance based on that. So one of the examples I use is we tend to use exams as a way to assess your performance. But you're trying to communicate to us what you know and what you don't. So there's a natural tendency that if you know a lot more than you're really showing, you don't necessarily want me as a professor to know. You just want an assessment, and you don't necessarily need professors to push you any further than just the memorization part. As you found in this class, we relish budget tension in an effort to kind of get the best out of you. So that's our goal. We also have some budget challenges. If we're trying to plan for the future, there are a lot of challenges. One, people have specialized knowledge. So you all are going to know more about your world than I will ever know. You don't know, I don't know how hard your other classes are. I don't know how difficult your personal life might be. I don't know any of these factors that can affect you. And so the question always becomes, how important is it to reveal specialized knowledge? The idea being that if I know more about my situation, I can build in something called budget slack. If I could spell or write. And that's the idea that we might have an expectation of what you can do. you can actually do it much faster. You don't want me to know that it's much easier than it really is. So you're going to use that extra time as kind of a benefit to you. So we're trying to build in some budget slack. The other thing is budget ratcheting. The idea that budgets go up, they seldom go down. And so you see this in your courses as well. A lot of times we have an expectation of what course content we want to include. Well, something new comes along and something new comes along and we tend to add it, but we don't take anything away. And so the expectations grow without the understanding that that puts additional pressure on the people that are in the course. So that's an example of budget ratcheting. And finally, this performance trap, the idea that you're only going to do as well as the assessment. Now, I find that a little bit untenable because I think people are wanting to do something that's important, and they'll go beyond the call if they feel like what they're doing has some additional value besides just a grade. So that's my focus on those challenges. The other thing about budgets is they're designed to create connections between different parts of the organization. So what the sales department might come up with is a different budget than what the folks that are making the products is going to have. That could be different than what the chief executives believe. So this is a way to kind of align those differences of opinion or differences in incentives in a way that we have a coordinated effort to get done the things that the organization wants to do and meet their overall goals and expectations for a year. But getting those connections can be hard because of these challenges and because of this tension. So being aware of those foundationally from where we start is important. We're going to talk about two different groups of budgets here. Operating budgets, which focus on sales and production. Cash budgets, which focus on when do I get my cash when I sell stuff, and when do I have to pay my cash. But you'll see that the top item that I have here is going to be risk assessment. And this is a culmination of, as I said, what we did in Module 3 and where we are now in Module 5. So looking for risk is what you're after. And so it's kind of a Finding Waldo moment. Where is risk? And wherever you find it, that's your job. When you go to work, that's your job, finding those kinds of risk factors and how do you mitigate those. So a few more slides to kind of summarize where we are in this particular module. The first thing is you got to remember this is future driven. So Nostradamus would be a perfect budgeteer. Be able to see the future, talk about where we're going, and identify the upcoming plans and expectations. Sadly, nobody has Nostradamus. I mean, he even looks old. So my guess is that he's not out there. If he is, he might be working for Tim Cook at Apple. I don't know. That's kind of the best we could do. Anyway, that's the future. Remember, these budgets are focused on the future, all right? And as a result, we can't know that, but we can try to anticipate it. And so remember this tension we talked about, the planning and the performance measurement, okay? So that's the issue we have here, that natural tension. Don't forget that organizations will also use incentives to try and encourage the behavior of people that are rewarded by those incentives to do the things that are in line with what the organization wants. And so that term, that alignment, the fancy term for that is goal congruence. Do you have your goals aligned? So think about your own group projects that you might have in other classes. Does your group have goal congruence? Well, there's almost always somebody, if you've got 4 folks in there, you got always somebody who is intense. They want to get this thing done. They want to get it done fast, and they want to control the operation. You also got somebody in there that probably they'll just go along. You know, they'll do what they might need to, but you're not going to be able to persuade them to work at the same level as this person. Then you got other people that may or may not participate to a great extent, and ultimately you wind up with this person taking over most of the work and feeling like nobody else did anything. So it's a difference in expectations and a difference in goal congruence. And so without that, it makes these groups very difficult to work with, and a lot of times not very much fun. So that's the way I kind of think about these tensions. Budget challenges. Everybody wants a bigger piece of the pie. Okay, so it might survey, but I, being a devotee of pumpkin pie, always want 3 pieces. That seems about right. I don't know who's not going to get a piece. Don't really care. As long as I get mine, I'm good. So that may not be the best attitude, right? When we start talking about how do we allocate resources. So would you give up some of the points that you've earned in the course, give them to somebody else so they don't fail the course? To be determined, okay? How much slack do you have? How much cushion do you have? If you were dropped from an A to an A minus, just so somebody else could pass the course, are you willing to take that hit? That's a tough decision to make. That's a tough decision to make. We also want to talk a little bit about these budget connections. At this point, I always kind of invoke Kermit the Frog when I say go back to his rainbow connections. Somebody always talk about budget connections, but that's enough of that because Eric doesn't like me to sing. But this is how these all fit together. Oh, and by the way, I've got new lyrics, budget lyrics in the handouts that you can start singing to yourself as we create another earworm. Anyway, everything is driven by the sales budget because that's the expectation of where we're going in terms of the volume of work we're going to do. It drives what we want to produce and ultimately how much cash we think we're going to get. So make sure you realize that this is kind of king of the mountain. And so in organizations, you'll find the marketing and sales department as having a lot of influence for a variety of reasons. But one of the reasons is because they're able to put in place the expectations of what they think the organization is going to do. That's why frequently they're in a high risk situation where if they miss that target, it affects everything down here. So be careful to recognize that risk is abounding in here, but it starts with this. It starts up here. If you get the sales forecast wrong or what you could sell your product for, you've got a big problem because that's going to affect everybody else downstream. Go Kermit. And don't forget, like I said early, that process uncertainty is the driver of risk. Anytime you see uncertainty, there's going to be risk. And risk is going to create this idea they need to have some sort of buffer in the budget in anticipation that things may not go the way they want. So if I'm in a situation where my department has a certain allocation of funds based on the expectation of what I'm going to do, and all of a sudden what I'm able to do is only half of that, should I give half of my budget back? Well, that's a difficult choice as well. So this buffering against risk is going to show up in your budget assumptions. What possibly could go wrong? As always, we try to give you a hint of things that you're going to have to watch out for as we assess your knowledge of the topic. So one, you need to make sure you understand this idea of budget conflict. Second, the concept of private information. You know, what do I know that the budget planner does not know? And how can I use that information or that private information to kind of protect myself since don't ask too much of me. Finally, do you know how to link the budgets? The biggest one is going to be this one. Okay, how do I link this to production? You're also going to get right in here, you're going to get an inventory effect. So you're going to have to watch for that. It's not a big thing, really. It's just the inventory equation, but we think about it in a little bit different way. Operating budgets and cash budgets. Cash budgets, when do I get my cash? And then finally, how do budgets tie to financial statements and my expectation? The word pro forma is something that just defines planned financial statements. They're not the actual results, they're kind of the expected results. So with that, that's kind of the summary that we have for this particular module. And we've got, I think, some really kind of interesting problems for class as we go through it. So I look forward to seeing you guys in class. And I look forward to welcoming Professor Valentine back for another lively session of module overview. Anyway, with that, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.